Welcome back, Hononegah Honors Algebra 2. Today we're going to talk about 7.4, adding and subtracting rational expressions. So this is a fancy way of saying we're going to start talking about adding and subtracting fractions. So as a numerical fraction, in order to add or subtract two rational expressions, you need to have a like denominator. Let's go back to or a common denominator. Let's go back to your middle school days and simple fraction like a half plus a third. Again, when you're adding and subtracting, and only when you're adding and subtracting, do you need to come up with what is the common denominator or the least common multiple. So as you're going through this, I could multiply this fraction by 3, and I can multiply this fraction by 2 to both the top and the bottom. Once you have the same denominator, the denominator stays the same, and you add or subtract, depending on what's in the middle, the numerator. So again, as you are going through this, we have to come up with what is the common denominator. And simplifying your answer may take fewer steps. So if you can come up with the least one, it's going to help you a little bit. So what would the least common multiple be for 24 and 18? Now, that is a little bit more complicated. I need to come up with the number that I can get from each of them. And so sometimes it's actually easier to start coming up with like ways to get that. And so then you see that both of them have a 6, and the first one has a 4, and the second one has a 3. So if I take one of each of those, a 6, a 4, and a 3, I get 72, and that is the least common multiple. If I multiply 24 by 3, if I multiply 18 by 4, that's going to get us to 72. And then the letters, you're looking for the highest power of each one. So I need an x squared, because that's the highest power of the x. I need y to the 4th, because that's the highest power of the y. And I need a z squared, because that's the highest power of the z. So the least common multiple is 72x squared, y to the 4th, z squared. Now that works this way when it's binomials or single terms. No plus or minus in between. So what's going to happen when I start getting that? Well, I have to factor. Everything in this chapter is your ability to factor, which is again why we did section 7.1 AC. And so somebody who struggles with factoring is really going to struggle with being able to add and subtract fractions. Now, here's what I would say. The least common multiple basically has to represent every single term. So notice I have a 1x minus 3 over here. I shouldn't have crossed that out, but 1x minus 3 on the left and 1x minus 3 on the right. So that has to be represented. But there's a second one. So I need 2 x minus 3s. And then there's 1x plus 3, so I need one of those. And then what is the what is the least common multiple between 9 and 6? 18 would be the smallest. Because if I multiplied 9 by 2, I multiplied 6 by 3, I would get to 18. So the answer to the least common multiple, or what's the easiest way to get to both denominators, would be x minus 3 quantity squared, x plus 3, and 18. All right, so let's actually do a fraction here. I need to come up, and this is what I tell everybody, just rewrite the fraction here, but I got to come up with what is the least common multiple between 7 and 4x. 28, so that's the number, and the left-hand side had an x, so I need to have an x in my common denominator. Once you've established the common denominator, now it's just about multiplying the top to get there. So I need to multiply this by 7 to get to 28x squared. I need to multiply this one by a 4x. Once you have the common denominator, that's the denominator in your answer, and now it's just about adding and subtracting like terms. And since the 21 minus 4x can't be added together because they're not alike, that's the answer. The first one is a binomial, but the second one is not, so I need to try to factor it. All right, so notice 9x squared and 3x. So I factored this. So I'm going to go ahead and cross it off. 9x squared and 3x are both binomials, so I need to come up with the common denominator, and the common denominator would be 9x squared. And then they both need an x plus 1. Again, everything in the original question needs to be represented in the common denominator. Now it's a matter of what do I need to multiply by to get there. It already had a 9x squared, so I only need to multiply this one by a 7x plus 1, and I distributed. This one, I already have an x plus 1, but I need to multiply by 3 and an x. So 9x squared, x plus 1, and I add all the like terms in the numerator. Factorable, 2x minus 1. Factorable, x minus 3 and x minus 1. So again, when I'm trying to establish my common denominator, I need to have everything represented. So I need a 2. I need an x minus 1. So when I'm looking at the second one, I need an x minus 3. And I already have the x minus 1. So I now have everything from the original denominators is now represented in the common denominator. So now, what do I have to multiply to get there? This one needs an x plus 3. So I distribute or FOIL, and I get x squared plus 5x plus 6. Second one, I have an x minus 1. I have an x minus 3. I don't have the 2. And so now I need to multiply the top by 2. Now, this will be a huge mistake that many of you will make when this question is on your test. It's a subtraction sign. So I need to make sure that I subtract both of those. So I have x squared. I have a plus 5x minus a negative 4x, which makes a positive 9x. And then I have a 6 minus a negative 2, which makes a plus 8. Now, the top is factorable. This is the answer, by the way, but the top is factorable. I want to make sure that you guys all at least look for that. And so since nothing cancels, then I don't have to worry about it. So either one of these answers would be correct, but I do want you to think about the top being factorable, because if the top is factorable and something cancels, then I would need to do that. Complex fractions. Complex fractions are basically having a fraction within a fraction. The numerator of the denominator has a fraction as well. If necessary, simplify the numerator denominator by writing each as a single fraction, then divide by multiplying the numerator by the reciprocal. Here's what I'm going to tell all of you. Turn this into 2 questions and then combine them. So here, over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to do the top. Over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to do the bottom. Okay. What is the common denominator? Common denominator is x. So I need to multiply this one by an x. And so the top, as one fraction, would be 2 minus 4x over x. Second one, x is the common denominator. That means I need to multiply this one by an x. And so now I get 2 plus 3x over x. Remember, this was top being divided by bottom. So if it's the top divided by the bottom, then I'm going to take the top, multiply by the reciprocal. And now this gets us back into the previous section. I can start canceling. And so 2 minus 4x over 2 plus 3x. Remember, you can't cancel anything that's part of a binomial unless it's the exact same binomial. So I divided the top divided by the bottom. The top, well, I don't have to do anything to the top, so that's nice. But the bottom, I've got a lot of work to do. I need to come up with the common denominator. Remember, this is a binomial, and that is not. So I need an x and an x plus 4, which means I need to multiply the first one by x to get the common denominator, and I need to multiply the second one by x plus 4 to get the common denominator. Adding like terms. So x plus 2x makes 3x plus 8. All right, now divided by 5, x plus 4. Anytime you divide by a fraction, you need to multiply by the reciprocal. Cancels. And so the final answer is 5x over 3x plus 8. As you're timesing these two together. Homework assignment is out of the book. If you have any questions or concerns, please make sure you talk to your teacher. These past two sections require a lot of factoring, a lot of understanding of fractions. So if you do have problems with that, please make sure you talk to your teacher, and good luck.